Hey guys, I'm Bobby from Adventures in Whiskey. Thank you so much for joining me. So I read a lot of the comments that you guys put on some of my videos, and sometimes you guys ask for request videos, and this is one of them. This is Johnnie Walker Black Label versus Johnnie Walker Blue Label. If you go through my feed, you'll notice I've reviewed Blue Label by itself already, and I've also done a comparison of Johnnie Walker Red Label versus Johnnie Walker Black Label. But to appease you guys, since you guys are the ones watching, here we go. Black Label versus Blue Label. So what's the difference? Well, first, Black Label is much cheaper and has an age statement. Not that that's really important. I know that's a very sensitive subject for some people. Some people like age statements and only drink age statements. Other people prefer to go after the flavor profile they're drinking. But more on that later. So Johnnie Walker Black Label is the second in the Johnnie Walker core lineup after the Red Label. As you can see here, it's aged 12 years. Boxes. It's bottled at 40% ABV and is generally a staple here in this house. It's my wife's, these two are actually my wife's favorite whiskeys. Now, bottle of Johnnie Walker Black Label run about $30 to $40, depending on where you're buying it. Sometimes you can find it on special for a little bit cheaper, sometimes not. But still a great buy for 35 to 40 bucks. Johnnie Walker Blue Label, on the other hand, no age statement, sits at the top of Johnnie Walker's core lineup. So red, black, green, gold. What used to be platinum is now, I think, Ultimate 18, and Blue Label. The Blue Label was introduced, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, late 80s, early 90s. Pour a little bit there. And as you can tell by the amount left in the bottle, it's a favorite here in this household. So let's go back and forth here on the nose and the flavors. Black Label. Oh, by the way, know this: Johnnie Walker Black Label and Blue Label aren't the same blend. They're completely different blends. So it's not like all they take one blend and just age it a little bit more, and all of a sudden it's a different Johnnie Walker. Each one is blended on its own. I've gotten that question before. So Black Label is a totally balanced whiskey on the nose, on the palate. I used to use this expression a lot, and at little private tastings a few years back, and I've noticed that Johnnie Walker sort of uses a similar saying. A glass of Johnnie Walker Black is like a tour of Scotland, because it contains whiskeys from basically every corner of Scotland. Diageo, it's Johnnie Walker's parent company, owns a ton of distilleries. So you get some of those toffee notes. You got a slight nutty note there. In the back, there's a slight earthiness, nothing too much, and there's a little bit of a peaty note, which is probably what that earthiness is. So it's nice and rich, even though it's bottled at 40% ABV. It's got a decent nose. Nothing stands out in the nose, but it integrates really well. It's nice. Now let's take a look at Blue Label. Again, no age statement compared to Black Label. Now, immediately, Blue Label comes across as a bit more refined, a little bit more laid back, not as toffee heavy on the nose. Um, it's got that little bit of peat, little sort of a burnt orange zest sort of thing happening. It's a bit more laid back, like I said, and it's a bit more refined compared to Black Label. Really nice nose. It's one you can sort of smell all day. Again, like Black Label, Blue Label's very well balanced on the nose. Let's take a taste. Um, you can add water if you want. I don't find, with my experience with these two whiskeys, that adding any water uh, helps anyway. They're sort of ready to drink as is. Now, if these were cask strength whiskeys, by all means, add a few drops, add a splash, whatever. Ice. Um, Add ice if you want. Drink it how you want. That's the whole point. So, Black Label. What I find true on the palate here. Oh, that's nice. Um, when I mentioned it's sort of like all of Scotland in a glass, that's sort of what it is. You get those nice fruity Speyside malts. You get a little bit of a dryness from Highland. You get a slightly salty, very slightly salty island whiskey, probably Talisker. Um, and then mid palate, there's a nice sort of soft, smoky character that comes across. For me, that's the Johnnie Walker signature. Is a little bit of smoke, um, and that's probably Kalila if I had to guess. Again, both of these are blended whiskeys, which means malt whiskeys and grain whiskeys. They don't share what percentage of what or specifically what distilleries these whiskeys come from. What I will say is Black Label is extremely well balanced. Uh, you can sort of pick out certain styles, but not necessarily pick out specific distilleries, if that makes any sense. Um, and when I say, maybe that smokiness is, I mean, that saltiness is from Talisker, the smokiness is from Kalila, for me, those are guesses. If you know any different, please comment below, let me know. It's very well balanced. The finish, it's kind of short. That's where it falls short a little bit for me. It's kind of short. You do have a little bit of that slightly sweet, not really sweet, slightly sweet toffee with a little bit of smoke that sort of carries on, but it sort of rounds off quickly. I'd probably call it a short to medium finish. Now, for someone just getting into whiskey, they want to try something peated. This is perfect because it's not overly peated. I've had some people that have tried it and they think it's way too smoky for them. I wouldn't consider it a smoky whiskey, but you got to start somewhere. I think this is baby steps to build someone up. Personally, I've tried Johnnie Walker Black years ago and I fell in love with it. But my first really peated whiskey was Lefroy 10, and that was a nice peaty punch to the face. That is not this. This is well balanced. Like I said, just a little whiff of smoke. You almost get even a kind of a smoked meat quality about it. But nothing as intense as just an Islay single malt or something like that. A little sip of water. Yes, smart water makes you smarter. So, Johnnie Walker Blue Label. For a lot of people, this is sort of the top shelf whiskey. The whiskey a lot of people aspire to get, and they equate it with success. Um, I remember growing up, Johnnie Walker Blue Label was the most expensive whiskey I knew of before I got into whiskey. Um, Now I mean, it's $250 is expensive, but it's not completely ridiculous for the price range or for the price um, compared to other single malts. I think there was a 72-year-old Macallan that was announced recently that is going to sell for $60,000 a bottle. That's expensive, folks. $250 is nothing compared to that. But then again, this is not chump change. So, where do we go? Taste. Mm. There's a certain elegance about this whiskey compared to uh, Black Label. There's a familiarity, sort of the Johnnie Walker DNA, in that there's a there's a sweet toffee note throughout. It feels a little bit darker here. Um, there's some spice. There's a little bit of an earthy, slightly smoky character. The smoke feels a little bit different. It's not as big here as it is in the Black Label. Um, so again, if I had to call this a smoky whiskey, I wouldn't. Um, that's to me is a little bit smokier. Generally, anyway, with single malts, if the younger the whiskey, peated whiskey, the kind of the stronger that the more that peat comes out in its big raw form. Uh, when it has time to sort of age and mature over the years, it sort of rolls off a little bit. Um, there's no age statement here, but you can tell there's some older whiskeys here, but there's also some younger whiskeys to balance things out. Johnnie Walker Blue's never had an age statement, as far as I know. So if someone comes to you and says this is 20 something years old, this is 18 years old, baloney. There's no age statement on there. All we know for sure is at least 3 years old, but obviously it tastes a lot older. My one complaint, and you'll find me saying this a lot, um, and it also carries over to the Black Label, is because it's bottled at 40% ABV, which is sort of the minimum a whiskey can be bottled. The mid palate comes across a little thin, a little watery. Um, it's not going to ruin the experience by any stretch of the imagination, but if this were bottled at 43%, and actually somewhere in here, I think I have a Johnnie Walker Year of the Monkey bottled at 43% that I haven't opened up yet. I think I still have it somewhere. But when I do, I'll be sure to put it on here. Um, but even a 43%, I think helps that a little bit. At 40%, I find the mid palate always comes across a little watery. And it could be that I'm used to drinking higher proof whiskeys, and when it comes to drinking a 40% or 40 proof, an 80 proof, 40%, sorry, um, comparatively I'm used to stronger things, so it comes across as a little watery. Um, but take that as it is. The finish, um, as I mentioned before, in the palate, you get some of those rich toffees. You get a little bit of a sort of an almondy note. You get some spice. There's a little bit of an earthiness like mushrooms, um, and then that little bit of smoke that's a little bit different, a little bit more rounded than Black Label. The finish isn't as sweet as Black Label. Um, a lot of that smoke character is a bit more present, but it's not the defining characteristic of the finish. If that makes any sense. Um, the finish here, I'd probably consider a medium finish. It doesn't linger around too long. It doesn't cut as short as a 12-year Black Label, but it's nice. There's that slightly burnt orange sort of thing happening as well. Um, For me, it's a bit more complex than Black Label. Black Label is nicely balanced. If you want a beautifully balanced whiskey, Black Label is your way to go. And I recommend Black Label for every home bar all across the world. Black Label should be there. It should be a staple. Blue Label, very, very elegant, very refined whiskey. Thoroughly enjoy it, as you can tell by the amount left in the bottle. So which one's better? It's not a question of which one's better. It's a question of they're different, basically. With the Black Label, you get a great value for your whiskey, for your money. It's a wonderful whiskey to drink neat. You want to throw an ice cube in it, by all means. You want to throw a little water in it, by all means. You want to mix it. You could. If you're looking for a whiskey to mix, I'd probably stick with like Johnnie Walker Red or something like that. Now, if you have the money and you like that Johnnie Walker profile, that sort of richness with a wisp of smoke, Johnnie Walker Blue gets a recommendation 7 days of the week. It is fantastic. Is it worth it? That's something I answered in my my Johnnie Walker Blue video. That all depends on what flavor profile you're looking for. For me, this flavor profile is completely worth it. Sometimes you can find Johnnie Walker Blue on sale down to about $200. Sometimes a little cheaper, depending on where you're shopping. If you do, snatch it up. You'll completely like it. If you don't, send it over to me and I'll drink it. Well, there you go. If you've had either of these two, let me know what you think. Which one you prefer of the two. Comment below, please. If you like what you see, please subscribe. Oh, by the way, before I go, I want to point out the little tray that my glasses are in. I got this new the other day. It's straight from the Southern Drinking Club. It's a nice little whiskey tasting kit that I'll review in a future video. But I wanted to sort of bring it out now, and I really like the way this presents my whiskey. But with that, if you like what you see, please comment below. I'll see you soon. Cheers.